So we have been discussing about different paradigms of communication, right? We have finished with a modernist paradigm of communication and also dependency model of development and modernist model of development, right? All of you have already got the course outline which is being shared with you in Google Classroom as well as in the group. So if we go through the syllabus, you will have a fair idea. This is the original course outline and the syllabus, which is not changed. And I'm going to change a bit to make it much more easier to reflect on what is being taught in a school, because there are a lot of overlapping in that course outline, which I will do. First, I'm sharing it as it is. Okay. So that was actually a broad dynamics of communication. Okay. So today I will discuss about this community development, which I have already started, and this is a very important perspective. Those three paradigm of development is being discussed. The way you understand the development and underdevelopment, and that too in international and national politics, as well as development in rural and urban areas. Now we are moving to community development. Understanding community development is very important, and this is a part of, let me tell you, the participatory model of development, which got emphasized after 1980s. People say that participatory model of development, or you see participatory communication of development, came into being after 1970s, but actually it was I'll say more sporadic and proliferated after 1980s. You see, 1930s and 40s, we actually focus more on collaboration among different agencies, government agencies, NGOs, and existing institutions in terms of bringing development to the people. Now, here we are talking about people-centric development. Earlier also we were talking about, we discussed about development which were focused on people but not necessarily focused on people's involvement, right? So basically when we talk about development, it's all about growth according to earlier model of development. And dependency model of development focuses on the critiquing the development process which is being offered to us by modernist paradigm of development. Okay, so we have been discussing about these two paradigms in last two classes, so we are not going to repeat it. But when you understand the participatory model of development, what is important is to understand the difference between dialogic and monologic communication. Now, when we see the earlier model of development, to understand development and underdevelopment in developing and developed countries, okay, or you see developing and developed countries in the international front, then we talk about diffusion of innovation. So here in monologic model, we focuses on one-way communication, where it focuses only on dissemination of information first. That is what you diffuse the innovation or any information, and second, to persuade. So first is to disseminate information, second is to persuade the people who are being targeted to develop. But in dialogic communication, we focus on access and empowerment. So communication is a means to create more access, and communication is a means to create empowerment among people. So this is according to dialogic model of development. So initially, as per monologic model, people are not supposed to involve, but people are supposed to be persuaded. People are supposed to be convinced about the messages, the way it is being designed for them. They watch a show and they will be convinced by the messages which is being disseminated to them. So they will be persuaded, and they will also be informed and get themselves educated by that message after watching that show, after listening to a show. So they will try to change their behavior. So monologic model of communication, which is also equivalent to modernist paradigm and also to dependency. You see the perspective of development, it is much more related to persuading and information, giving people information. But here in dialogic communication, we are focusing on the CBA aspect. CBA is communication based assessment, apart from communication need assessment. Okay, so these are two strategies which are very important to understand the people centric development. What is communication based assessment and how it is different from communication need assessment? So, when we talk about communication need assessment, basically we are talking about people's need related to communication, about the existing information system in the villages, about the accessibility of different modes of communication, be it television, radio, internet, mobile phone, and the network connections, bandwidth, etc. Okay, number of television sets, number of radios in a village per household, or number per five people, five household or 10 household. Like that way, we try to find out communication need assessment and what is the need of the people regarding communication, the kind of felt need they do have regarding communication. When we talk about the felt need, whether they feel that one program is required or not, whether they are being persuaded by one program which is being broadcast, definitely that is to gear certain change in their attitude and behavior, but whether they are being affected by that program or not. So that's how we understand communication need assessment. But here in communication based assessment, we are trying to find out the socio-political and cultural context of communication of the people. So what do you understand by the socio-political and cultural context? The kind of risk and opportunities that people have regarding communicating among themselves. So this is not about availability of communication system. This is not about availability of televisions, accessibility of television, radio, and mobile handset or internet. This is more about their problem in communicating with their fellow villagers. Okay, so you see the power equation which has existed in the villages in communication based assessment, the existing power equation, the power relations in the villages, and which can problematize the realization of developmental needs and realization of developmental goals by the villagers. So here in dialogic model of communication, we will be focusing more on communication based assessment. Many a time we also see that when you go to field, we try to understand the need of the communication, so the need of the people. So one communication expert might also ask, where is that communication phenomenon? Communication phenomenon is there when you ask the people about their felt need, when you ask the village people about their problem. That is a part of communication based assessment here in dialogic model of communication. So here in dialogic model of communication, we will not try to convince. Instead, we will try to discover. We will not try to convince people. We will try to discover the problem and needs of the people. Try to make them identify their needs, because most of the time people do not know their needs. Okay, and then we will also try to, enquire rather than persuade. So our goal is not to persuade. We will try to enquire. Okay, ask them, interrogate them, and that too in a way which is mutual between two parties. So we are moving from that SMR model, that sender, message, receiver model, to that receiver and message centric model. So receiver message centric, when we give more emphasis on the message component as well as the receiver, who are at the receiver end, rather than who is being sending the message. And hence, from Wilbur Strong's model of communication, we are focusing more on receiver-centric communications. We can talk about the polyphorous communication that emphasize on conscientization. So here in participatory development, the way Polyferry has described about the importance of development, which can help us to understand ourselves, which can help us to conscientize the situation and develop that conscience for any affected situation, which is important. He said that traditional teaching ideology or teaching way has full of, you see, deposit of the rich values and the culture, and that's why teachers were also most of the time rewarded for their passivity, and teachers were a bit passive. Here, when we talk about the teachers, I am not simply talking about those who are into an institution and delivering lectures. Teachers are also those who are sender, who are the source. So that teacher-centric model of communication will give emphasis on accumulation and depositing of the rich and rich value, and that's what has made them very passive. So here in dialogic communication, we focus on creating a dialogue not to argue with the people, not to convince people, not to persuade people, but we encourage, we discover their problem, and also we try to establish a mutual understanding among the people by way of understanding their felt needs, their problems, the extent of the problem, scope of the problem, the existing resources in that community, how they are utilizing their resources, what are their communication needs, what are the communication goals that they have set, etc. etc. Okay, so communication based assessment and communication need assessment, both these strategies are very important for, you see, the logic model of communication. Okay, so here we are focusing more on bottom-up approach rather than top-down approach. Now you see that what does the top-down approach tell us to do? In top-down approach, we see the existence of the national security and less of people's autonomy, national security and control. But in bottom-up approach, you can actually see the existence of people's autonomy and freedom. Here we are talking about a decentralized approach instead of a centralized approach, where people's freedom will matter more than national security. We are focusing on subnational unity and identity rather than national unity and identity. We are also talking about political participation rather than political socialization. So when we talk about political socialization, it is more about learning understanding about politics, and that too from peer group, from the family members, and from the very institutions that you are in. Right, that's how you socialize yourself regarding political values and ideas. But here in political participation, you actually participate in any group, in any debate discussions, you watch any political show, and form an opinion. You have the audacity to even express your opinion. You have that capability to make your opinion reach to another 10 or 10 to 100 people. So that's what political participation is emphasized upon bottom-up approach. Okay, here also we are talking about distributive justice rather than economic growth, which is being advocated by top-down model. What is distributive justice? It is all about distribution of benefits, goods and burdens equally among the members of the community. So when we talk about that benefits and the goods, you are talking about distributive justice is already established in our constitution through right to equality principle. That is a fundamental right. So that is equality in terms of distribution of goods and benefits, in terms of you see employment, in terms of like holding occupation in any public sector undertaking, right? But apart from this, on the basis of merit, you can have a distributive justice and allocation of benefits, right? Like scholarship and all. That is free studency, etc. Okay, so we also have a kind of that reverse discrimination that is also in a way to realize the distributive justice phenomenon, allocation of goods and services among the people, and burden which are there regarding the problem of the community, which is very important, which now you will try to focus up and you will try to dissect the kind of problems. So when you say the problems or you see the burdens are to be shared by all the members of the community, and that's what the prime difference between the top-down approach to communication and bottom-up approach to communication. Here in you see taxation policy of the government, we also see some kind of distributive justice. Okay, basically they make the rates to tax and which is to be allocated for the poor. Okay, then we also see communication surveillance, which is meant for centralized approach, because you see that centralized approach always focus on that communication surveillance. There's different kind of surveillance like metadata. So you are communicating, collecting these data regarding your communication to whom and where it is being communicated, about networking, about even surveillance over the network, over the traffic that is being circulated and flowing across the network. Also monitoring your call, monitoring your movement. There is also a practice called mass surveillance, where government that exhort that resort to a kind of surveillance which is for all. And there are also targeted surveillance targeted towards a specific individual when there is a warrant or any kind of suspension. Then there is also targeted surveillance where you can also see there is a kind of that metadata surveillance, device surveillance, monitoring of this networking and all. These are all part of this top-down approach. But here in bottom-up approach, we are talking about communication privacy. So, which is important to for us to enjoy the autonomy. Okay, but when you talk about the surveillance, it is also designed by the government for transparency and accountability. Okay, but here we emphasize in bottom-up approach, we emphasize more on communication privacy. Okay, now you see there is also, you need to see some of the nitty-gritties here. Then we see your understanding of the people-centric development or community development. The term community development is very important. Okay, this is basically a people-centric development, as you understand. What is community? Understanding the community is important. How you perceive the community, and then when you say development of the community, you are actually not trying to calculate the benefit of development to one particular segment. Rather, it is a coherent approach. You are going to take all the parts of the community, irrespective of class, caste, gender, age. Okay, so benefits should be distributed to all. So this community development could be process oriented. It could also be task oriented. Community who usually hold a specific, you see, inhabitants of a specific location. That's how we understand, right? So you can also define community. Inhabitants of a specific location, and also having their specific, you see, ascriptive identity can define a community. So when we say ascriptive identity, these are different ascriptive identity like ethnicity, which can also form a community, ethnic community. We can talk about religion, which may be an ascriptive identity, which help you to define a community. Right, language may be one ascriptive identity, help you to define a community. So that's what inhabitants of a particular space and locality based on ascriptive identity is understood as a community having some commonality in terms of even occupations. Okay, and there is also geographical specificity. That's what a specific space and specific location we are talking of. Now, when we talk about development as a process goal, as a task goal, in way of understanding the people-centric development, we are talking here about task goal, right? Task will you will finish one project through intervening, and that too within a definite period of time. And development is a process. That means you are going to bring in the external agencies, be it NGOs, okay, and also establishing some village institution, self-help group, to intervene into the community for development, where you won't measure development for a specific period of time, rather the development is ongoing. Okay, so your development is a process goal. Community development involves both a process goal as well as a task goal. Okay, here also we talk about problem solving approach. Right. So many a time it is said that community development personnel, those community workers, try to problematize the situation out of nowhere, or many a time it is their habit to problematize the situation so that they can actually find a solution. There is also a vision, because here there are problems related to understanding of the needs. Here we try to bring in communities who can realize their needs. I have already told you that communities cannot realize their needs. You go ask a village community, they won't be able to tell you about their felt needs. They will tell you hundreds of their desire maybe, but the exact need that they want, you tell me, you only give me 3 4 needs or 1 or 2 needs which we can meet, we can address. They will not be able to tell you, even if they are educated. Maybe because of the, you see, because of the mobile phone, and again a modernist intervention of modernist perspective. You see, that is also another way of understanding development. Okay, so you intervene through ICT. So you can also give them the ICT a tool and make them learn the tool, educate them, even learning the tool. That is a way of capacity building, and they can realize their felt needs. No. Okay, hence it is important to make community people realize, or a community as a whole to realize their felt needs. Now there are different needs that we will look into. Okay, you see, needs will comes from the very problem, right? So you understand. So it is very important for a community person to identify the problem now, and that is the first felt need, and the extent of the problem, extent of that need, scope of that problem, and scope of that need. Okay, then whether the problem that I am talking of actually is a chronic problem, I have been telling you in the last class also, it's a chronic problem or it's a temporary problem, which you are supposed to find out, and the existing resources in the community to deal with that problem is very important on your part. Okay, as a community worker or as a intervention interventionist or intervention institution. And then also existence of external agencies who already intervene into the community to realize their felt need or trying to solve the problem is also very, very important. Okay, So here you will try to make people understand their needs and also try to make people uh, understand the existing, realize the existing resources, how with the help of those resources they can solve their problem. Okay, so you can give thousands of examples. There are so many examples when you actually understand the NGO activities. So we should have discussed about NGOs first, but we will be discussing about the NGO non-governmental organization maybe after 2 3 classes. Okay, because this is important how NGO actually intervene. When we are talking about community worker, you are basically going to work as a NGO representative. How you are going to intervene into the community. So in people-centric model of development, here also there is an intervention. Intervention may be through communication agent who belong to a government institution or through an NGO, right? But to understand the very basic needs, the existing opportunities they do have, and the risk, which is a part of CBA. Understanding those, you can frame communication strategy and you can design message. So in coming classes we will also be discussing about communication strategy and message designing, which is very important to intervene into this community. Okay. Remember in last class we have discussed about John Gottman's model of development, where we discuss about the people-centric development. He also spoke of three different types of intervention. One is locality development, another one is social planning, and third one is social action. So in each sphere of developmental activities, we get to find the role of communication agent and the interventionist will be different. In a way, locality development model will tell you more about apathy in that villages. So when people cannot realize the need to have a mutual understanding, okay, so there is a sheer apathy. They don't think about participating. They don't understand the need for participation. There is school, but there is no enrollment of the student. There is a PHC health clinic, but you see this. There is no doctor available. People don't access the services regularly, and there is a structure, but there is no human capital and no human resources, and also there is lack of social capital in the sense that helping more, that trust, which is lacking in that village, where an NGO intervention should be directed towards locality development, where NGO will focus more on institution building, democratic governance. When you talk about democratic governance, you need to mobilize the people. Now again, when you are talking about mobilization, mobilization is also a kind of top-down model. When you say mobilize, because from a bottom-up approach that is highly decentralized, we are not talking about mobilization in a way. We are talking only about participation. But when you say community mobilization, again we are thinking in both way round. You see, this top down intervention is there, but the way it is facilitated is bottom up. Okay, so it's very important for a interventionist or a communication agent to mobilize the community people in locality development model. So in this tree model, as I have already told you, one is locality development, right? They will try to form some institutions. Okay, there is no village club. Even if there is a club, people don't come and play football or discuss on any like recent problem that village is facing, any challenges that village is facing. People do not have time to do that. Okay, and there is lack of interest also. That apathy is shown, and hence community will intervene, try to find out why there is an apathy, why there is no participation. So you need to also have some understanding about lack of participation or barriers of participation, and some of the parameters we usually know. what can be the barriers of participation. Okay, so like language may be one problem, and also for long people are not given any kind of benefits even if they have been working. They are not getting anything in return. That may be region of apathy. There might be cultural barriers among females and males. They cannot sit together. They cannot come in open. Women cannot come in open, and also there is problem related to even literacy. The students are not allowed to go to school. They're allowed to work only because they do have some impression in the mind that the village people have an impression that if they go to school, they will lose their memory years. Rather, it's better to work and help the family. So that kind of cultural barriers might come. Women and male folk may not feel like coming together and discuss and sit together on any problem and discuss and solve it together. So this is a very common problem. Even now also in many households, women and male folk, they don't discuss any problem together. That is a very common problem, even if it is in urban neighborhood. Okay, so this is a prominent problem. And also you see other kind of cultural barriers are infrastructural barriers. When you say there is a problem related to distance, which is one infrastructural problem. Distance is a problem. That's why they don't come and meet. Okay, and also there is no development. Although there are institutions, these are not used properly, and people don't feel like going. So you need to find out why people don't feel like going. Okay, time constraint maybe, and or maybe some kind of inhibitions because of the elders. Okay, so even the elders of the village have made certain rules and regulations which also inhibit the participations. So there might be many. So you need to find out the barriers of participation when you think about community mobilization, to mobilize a community. So in community development, we actually think about community mobilization and locality development, social planning, as well as social action. These are also some of the models in order to make people realize their needs using their resources and to create a balanced distribution of resources and also to enjoy the equitable, that's what, distribution of resources. Okay, so in locality development, we focus on establishing self-help group and we bring in the community, try to establish consensus among the people. Suppose you intervene a village, you went to a village and you find that there is no school in that village. Okay, so we said that in certain occasions there might be school, that structure might be there, but there is no human resources. Okay, but in certain villages there might not be a structure. That might be a barrier. Just because the village is too poor, there is no structure, and where will they come and sit? Okay, that is the problem. You find that there is no structure. Now you will go, you will try to find out the interested people who are uh, ready for literacy program, or you try to bring in an adult literacy course who are ready to enroll. You try to find out, and you can have separate. You see the focus group discussion. In the last class also we discussed about some of the. Let me tell you some of the research methodology which are part of communication based assessment. Okay, now while we are talking about communication-based assessment, here we are focusing on certain methodology, research methodology to create dialogue between the communication. And most of the methodologies are rapid rural appraisal here. These are not that participatory, repetitive. Tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I will be discussing about PRA, participatory rural appraisal, but these are part of rapid rural appraisal, like a baseline survey. We talk about baseline survey, which we can do in, you see, pre-assessment or pre-test and post-test and post-assessment phases. In a sense that before you intervene, you learn people needs, their priorities, their knowledge, their attitude towards any problem, their perception, their behavior, and their level of awareness before you actually intervene into the community. You go, you have a transit walk, you understand the kind of structure which are being existed, power structure, that is that religious structures, and the demographic, having an idea about the demographic division in the villages, having that is kind of social division in the villages, and also some crucial problem which you can see from their eyes. You don't have to talk to anyone, but through observation, through ethnographic survey, or you say that anthropological study, which is also very important, which was even told by Y.V. Rao when he carried out a village study to understand the communication-based assessment to establish any kind of community media in a village. Okay, now we are also moving from people-centric development to community media because these are also important. I'm not going to discuss about community media, but in people-centric development, importance of communication is important, and understanding the importance of communication is also important. First, you can understand the importance and significance of communication through communication-based assessment and communication need assessment, and through various rapid real appraisal. Right? And then you see whether you have intervened to establish a communication outlet, and the effects of that outlet will also be assessed in the post assessment or post uh, installation period, that is the post test survey. So in baseline survey we can have two phases. In the first phase, before intervention, you understand people knowledge, attitude about this structure of a school. So whether they perceive that they need a school or not, they perceive that there is a problem related to education in that village, whether they are aware about the universal that literacy and universal that is that's what educational need or not, whether they perceive that they are aware of the existing basic resources in the villages or not. Okay, so once you get their perception registered, you then intervene, you try to decide a place where you can, you know, construct the structure. Okay, so that will also be done with interaction with the community. So you interact with the community, then we come out constructing a structure. How you interact? Suppose there are problems from women in terms of having a structure because of a distance issue. Women said that we also want to be literate, we want education, but see, if you construct a school here, we also need another provision for keeping our children. Okay, and apart from their children, girls and boys, women also want to get the benefits of that adult. This is basically the adult education. Okay, there are primary schools. You say that there is no provision of adult education. Women said that we want to, get enrolled into school, but we need a provision for keeping our children. Okay, so another condition to come across. Then you find out opinion from the main folk of the village, how village. Okay, whether they feel that women should be educated or not. If not, if they think that no, women should not be educated, then you create an awareness survey. You awareness survey to make them understand the importance of education. That is called conscientize. So you need to conscientize them. Okay? So create a conscience for importance of education. They could understand that importance through awareness camp. And once they give you permission, so it will take years. You see, so any kind of change will not happen in a day, in a week, in a month. So it will take years. Okay. Then you think about a place where a school can be, structure could be built. So now that should also be with the intervention of the people. Like how intervention means involvement, not intervention. You can also say involvement of the people. People can involve and they can also make a structure. So people can involve. We can say that people can involve. How women said that male folks said we will bring the wood. Okay, so we own our structure in that way. Okay, and you said we can only afford to give you the roof. Okay, so wood and they will bring the wood, and women said that we will get the water, fetch the water to make the school which is required in constructing the school in different way. Okay, so water will be required even in certain way to construct a school. So like that way, ultimately you see you involve both of them and you construct that structure. So you construct the structure for women also as well as for both. You can have separate rooms for women and men. Like that way you can make them own that structure. So you make it, you have built it by your involvement and having your own resources involved. Now you can own it. So it is easier for you also to hand it over to the community. So this is not simply a part of, you see, the social planning. It is a part of locality development. You make them involved. In the process, you have made them involved. They were apathic, but you have made them involved. The apathetic most person, if involved in the process of locality development or participated, then your effort towards development is successful. Okay, if a person who is always very much into that community work and all, and you only try to bring him or her into the forefront, will not make your goal realized. But you are trying to bring those who are apathetic mode, who are always deterrent. Okay, they better themselves to come to the front and to be a part of this development. Okay, so it is important to mobilize the community in that way and also to work with the community. Then you see that mediation, role of mediation is very important. When you say mediation, mediation is basically the role of mediation means the importance of media in order to, you see, inform, create, circulate, and neutralize message. That's how we understand the role of mediation here. So having a media, having a radio, television, mobile phone, internet, part of dominant paradigm of mediation. So here when you talk about interpersonal communication and existence of any folk media or community media, we are actually leveraging the that community level mediation. So more and more face-to-face interaction. In many communities there is no face-to-face interaction. Women are creating a separate cocoon for themselves, separate space. Men are also they don't help women in their day-to-day activities, even in their household activities also. So they do have a separate space. So you say they are way too apart from each other. So in that cases, it's very difficult to even to think about people-centric development in a village life. And in a village life, we actually try to mitigate, try to address those gaps. In urban life also we do have, and in urban life we see that we are susceptible to the forces of globalization. It's all because of globalization, because of having different occupations and also migratory nature. So we have a tendency that women are working alone, mainly staying outside and also feeding the household at the same time. So it becomes a norm. So we have a neutral family nowadays instead of a joint family. So it becomes a norm and demands of the time now. It is because because of the forces of globalization and liberalization have made us so. But in rural areas, You see, this globalization, those forces, we think that haven't touched the rural areas, but to an extent it has touched. When you say the self-help group, that is also part of liberalization effort. Say, we construct a self-help group, we also give them the loan, especially the women, we give them the loan and they will try to repay back. When they can't repay, there are also instances that they will commit suicide and all. Okay, so all the, you see, the burden is usually borne by the women. So this is a women-centric perspective again, so I'm not going to repeat it, but self-help group, building self-help group, establishing self-help group, and village level institution like any club you form, and any the sports club, the youth club, or any dance club, you say, are part of institution building in the at the village level, which will decentralize the communication, make people participate, and also establish the democratic governance. Democratic governance, you see that in each club there will also be members. Okay, the way they are being organized, you need to systematize that on that, and then it will actually lead to a democratic governance of the resources of the village, both the human resources as well as material resources of the villages. Okay, so here it is important in locality development to build a consensus, and communication agent is the facilitator. We here as an NGO activist is the facilitator. We facilitate that change. We are here to educate you, to even instruct you how to go about. We will be involving ourselves throughout the process, but more than we become a participants, we will tell you how to do. You become participants and change yourself. But and hence we also see that here the villagers are you see the citizen here for us. But in social planning, in the other model, we say that villagers are consumer. So we are not here work as a facilitator. We, as an NGO activist or as a communication agent, only study their problem through secondary survey. Most of the time secondary survey, or even if there is a primary survey through questionnaire or a baseline survey, we make it out. But again, we will not consult with them in intervening about the development. We find that there is a lack of literacy. Okay, we will bring in any scheme to make you literate. So you become the beneficiary of the scheme. You do not have any other way around to involve yourself to become a literate. You become a beneficiary. So you will create a beneficiary. So villagers are acting as a consumer of the schemes here. Okay, so we are here more as a technician. We are understanding their problem, and here there is a bureaucratization of the whole development affairs. In a sense that we understand their need at superficial level. So for last 10 decades or 20 decades, we have actually seen that there is a lack of education, place enrollment ratio of girls in the schools, and there is less of structures. So okay, there is also a scheme, so we can make them beneficiary of the scheme. In terms of creating structure, we will create a structure, we will recruit the teachers, but it is not our problem to find out about the maintenance of that structure, who will maintain, who will own that structure and all. Okay, but we have done our job, we have created the structure, with the help of the government we have done this. So our role is like a technician, more of a technician, not a facilitator here. Okay, in social planning model. So we now try to involve the community. But again, this is also part of people-centric development. I'm not saying that social planning is not a people-centric development. It is oriented toward the mainstream model, no doubt, but this is also said, John Rotman, this is also said that this is also a part of people-centric development when we focus more on service delivery. And that was also, you see, that was also a phase when development is more related to welfareism and service delivery. During 50s, 60s, development was related to all about delivering the services and distributing the welfare benefit. I see that in 1930s, 40s, development was related to collaboration among government and NGOs as well as other development institutions to bring in change. Then 50s, 60s, we see development was much more related to the service delivery and welfareism. 70s, that 60s, 70s, development was oriented towards that participatory model of development or people-centric development, which was actually realized after 1980s. Okay, so we talked about participatory model of development in 70s, but we have realized here in India, even in other parts of the world in 1980s. Okay, because we still believe in that, still we believe in modernist model of development, still we believe in that monologic way of communication. Now see, when you talk about the mediation, we in the last class we perhaps discussed about this community television. You know about site experiment and the Kheda experiment, right? So you know about the site and Kheda. Kheda, it is also a district in Gujarat, you know, Kheda experiment. So in Kheda, uh, uh, Kheda project was basically motivated, it was inspired by the site experiment. Okay, we have first, we need to understand about the benefit of the site, although we could not capitalize more on the lesson learned from the site experiment, that is also satellite instruction and television education, to that is install a television set in 2,400 villages. I guess you need to find out the exact number, and where we try to disseminate educational information, agriculture related education to the villagers, and try to, and that too through satellite. Now, to an extent it was successful, but as I have told you that we could not capitalize more on the benefits of like the site. But still in Kheda, Kheda is a small that district in Gujarat where government has installed, along with the help of SAC, that is a Space Application Center, to install the hardware and the software. Low meters transmitter were installed, which can transmit signal up to 50 kilometer. And then with local television stations and television studio and satellite art stations, they make the Kheda communication project possible. And here, what we actually see, the installation of 650 television sets in 400 villages in that district, in Kheda district, and while making the program, the programmer also include the perception, views, and knowledge of the stakeholders. Now, who are the stakeholders? Your stakeholders are also the milkman, because inside that Kheda program has created a white revolution in Gujarat district. Okay, so they also discussed problem of the milkman of the villages. They discussed the health personnel. They discussed the agricultural extension worker and also subject matter specialist, and also educationist. Okay, and they try to devise out program. And here you also see that infrastructure was borne by government. All infrastructural cost is borne by the government, and program was designed by the villagers. So we get to see the programmer. Once if programmer was there, who will consult with the local stakeholders as well as the subject matter specialist. Okay, and we get to see the writer from the village, visualizers from the village, programmers from the villages who will design the program. Right, we have that that is Chaturmota and Nadi to Narayani, because they actually work on those specific problems which have been rampant till now, like the gender equality. Alcoholism is also one problem, right from the very day, like the 1975. We have been dealing with this problem: alcoholism, gender inequality, then also that family planning program was also getting much more emphasized during that time. Then also there are intergenerational conflict, low level of literacy, a low level of health access, etc., etc. And we also see that this is also part of, you see, education, entertainment, education. That is a method. You know, education, entertainment method. You might have already come across this method, which is also used by Usam Hasim. You know Usam Hasim, who was from the information broadcasting, who was an information broadcasting official, who actually first started the long-running educational entertainment program in AIR. ओके, तिनका तिनका शूट, दैनीज, ये कहाँ आ गए हम, ये सब हैं जहाँ इसके जरिए दे ट्राई टू educate the people as well as entertain the people. These are long running format, these are not short, like, format. And they also work on the taboo issues in the villages, okay, like female sexuality and all. So some of the issues, the taboo issues, they dealt with employing the method, education, entertainment method, and also the speciality of Tinka Tinka Shoe, which was also transcreated to Kochu Kochu Mohandal, Little Little Ho, in other languages, in other districts. Okay, so these are also some of the long-running programs which were existed and part of, you see, this community media and a mediation program. You need to know it because this is also a part of mediation. And this mediation, you might say that PIB mediation are also part of modernist perspective. When we see TEDA and the site, many community media specialists will say that these are some of the examples, early examples we would like to cite. Okay, but we also see why, because it has actually created discussion among the villages. Rural radio, like Farm Pura, which was also implemented in Pune in 1959, created a kind of, like, group among the villagers who listen to the program, they discuss and they act upon. Even there are also other programs, like in the initial broadcasting, there were programs where people listen to the radio so much. And even this Tinka Tinka show was also listened to the people of there are like there is a survey that is a part of the baseline survey, that is after the broadcast of the program, how it has affected the minds and perception of the people. This is a part of post assessment. Okay, and they have found that okay, uh, people started thinking differently, because there was a tailor, Virendra Sahu or Kushwaha. There was a tailor in the UP, and also there was I think I forget the name. There is another person, two-person there, about whom it was mentioned as an instance whose perception did matter in terms of his exposure to that radio program. And you see that they listen to those radio program for 10 hours, Tinka Tinka. Like also 10 hours they listen to every day, and their shop is also at the, like, very center of that locality, and there are also 10-20 people sit along with him, and in a day he writes 4 to 5 letters to AIR. Okay, so that was, you see, this long-running program. That was a program, long-running format of education and long-running format, which now we don't effort to like put in. So this is just with the effort to make social change, make people realize the development goals. So okay, so okay. Anything else? Would you like to ask any question. Hmm?